Hey, you tourists, it's your boy Domination. This is back at the base. You're going to do since I would do takes baby man. Let's respect. You know what it is, it is. Real man rise up, fake man rise down. Real women rise up, fake women rise down. Practice we're preaching, preach on. And today's topic to talk about is today. I really want to speak about this, man. I really do want to speak about this. We need to study this goddamn stuff. We really do. When it comes to, because it's going to be Halloween in a few months. It's going to be Halloween. We need to speak about this kind of stuff. We need to speak about it. We need to speak about why all these damn problems that's going on, and then you wonder why. But listen to this what tradition Halloween came from. All right. Okay. Halloween or Halloween, and a concept of all of the Hallows Eve, also known as All Hallows Eve, and All Saint Eve. It's a year-mental celebration of in a numbers of a country on 31 October, and the eve of the Western Christian festival of All Hallows Day. All Hallows Day. It's the beginning of the three servant of Hallows of today. Did the time in the anniversary of the year, and pay tribute to the remember of the dead. You know what that means, including saints of Hallow and the Mediterranean and all the faith of the disposition of behavior, and contribute to many of the scholars. And all the Hallow Eve is a Christian anxiety of festival influenced by Celtic Harvard festival, with the possible pagan roots in probably in the Garfield of Fest and Hansen and Sam Hansen. Stan Hansen and other scholars maintain that its origins of independence of Hansen and have associated the Christian roots. Intrinsically in the contemporary of festival Halloween activities into trick or treating or the relate of the goddess and attempted of costume parties and disco array and the curve of punk and curbing punkin into jack o' lanterns and light a bonfire and apple of hobbit and the absolute of the divided games and playing prank invited of the invited haunted attention, telling scary stories and watching horror films in many parts of the world. The Christians of religion reserve of All Hallows Eve, including of the tenth of Christian of servants and lighting candles on the grave of the dead, and remains a popular all through its others location, and solely made the costumes, costume or less than and mentioned in the favor of more controversy and discussment of celebration because of many Western Christians dominate of the encouragement and all through most no longer of questionment and absolutely from the mills on All Hallow Eve, and the tradition of eating and of vegetables for this virtual of day, and perhaps including the concept of the apples and earthquake and carb and to potato pancakes, and soul cakes. See, all that stuff has come from Christianity. All that stuff, but it's really come from pagan holiday. You found that in ancient Greeks. You found it there. The word Halloween or Halloween is dated to about 1745, and it's a Christian origin. The word Halloween means hollow the evening or hollow evening. It's come from the Scottish term for All Hallows Eve, the beginning before All Hallows Day. In Scots, the word Eve is evening, and this is a concept to the Eve in East and over time and All Hallows Eve and evening and in evolution into the Halloween, and all the phrase that Hallows Eve, All Hallow, is the follow in Old English, and always invited me that All Saint Mass's Day, All in Hallows Eve itself is not seen until 1556. So it goes back all the stuff that's been taught from jack-lanterns and pagan holiday, all that stuff from Festival of the Dead and this and that. You need to study this goddamn stuff, man, because this explains why Europeans believe in this kind of stuff they've been taught. They believe in this stuff. From some say you hear stories about they put candies in glass and jack lantern to a real, put a deadly dead head and jack lantern, and, all that stuff is symbolized and it dates back. It's kind of weird when you think about it. You can do your research and more about this foolish fire. I figured what it stands for that. And Jack, if you watched the movie, it was called Nightmare Before Christmas. Jack Lantern is based on Jack, this guy. You need to read this because it shows you. Let me say to this, man. We need to study the Western world as much as we can. And I'm going to tell you why we need to study this stuff. Because these Europeans, these Caucasians, or whites, whatever you want to call them, these people are a part of us in some ways. I know what some black people are going to say. How these white people are part of us? Well, these people are actually black at one point. But what happened was they went to those caves again and they lost the trace of their color. This is why they hate black on most part. It got a lot to do with this. For anybody that think it don't have nothing to do with it, it did. This is why. Don't be afraid of them. They're part of you as just as much as you're a part of them. I'm not afraid of Europeans. I know what they can do and what they can't not do. And these are people they talking about Switzerland and the Netherlands and Manuel Moreau and the Adley and Adley man and Bartolino and Landage and Chester and Germany, France and Berlin and Australia and whatever you want to call it. These are European countries. We need to study this stuff. We need to study this stuff. We need to study it. Because these Europeans, these are the most part of whites, you say. Okay, the jack-o'-lanterns is also of a protected someone. The jack-o'-lantern are also a way to protect one home against the undead. And superstitious people use them and actually to warn away vampires. They thought this because it was said that jack-o'-lantern light was a way of identifying the vampires who once the identifier was known would give up they haunt for you. Basically, it's like, in other words, protect you and this and that. Why are we showing this stuff? We're showing this stuff because these Europeans believe this stuff. They believe this stuff, what they've been taught. They believe that. Just like I tell whites, don't be afraid of blacks, because blacks just like blacks in so many ways. They just like us in a lot of times. We too busy looking at their skin tone. I'm sorry. Europeans, in the most part, are pink or reddish or pale. But some of them is brunette, blonde hair, and red hair. But the blonde is the number one. Why? Because these people been told they are Aryans, they are Swedish, and it goes from Iran and India. They really do believe that. And it got something to do with this Hinduism. It got a lot to do with this. From the North India to South India. It's between the white and black. North is Sweden. South is basically they talking about basically I could have to say it had to be Sand Bushman people. They talk about the Sand Bushman people. They talk about those folks. If it ain't Sand Bushman people or Ethiopian or Nigerian, one of those two. But I'm gonna find the actually Africans. We need to know about these holidays that these Europeans worship. They worship this every year. They worship this every year. They still worship this to this very day. They worship it every year. The South Africans, we're going to find out who South Africans are. Because there are white people in South Africa. You know, there are white people in South Africa. Means the South. Yep. We need to know this. They talk about, you know, and that's when Dutch people came into British East British East India's companies. Yeah, they were shipped in out of Africa, and the Devil's Peak. They peep in, they kill these people, and they took their land from them. Yeah, it's Zulu people they talking about. So they was the Zulu people try to fight. They're trying to fight against the Europeans. The so-called Knight Templars, the Ku Klux Klan or the reincarnation as the Knight Templars. They are. Anybody that say they doesn't, you know they are. The people from the Moors, they descendants of the Nation of Islam. If you think they're not, keep thinking that, because they are. You wonder why blacks and whites always fighting. You wonder why. You wonder why all these things are going on. You wonder why these people, white people, are just like milk in so many ways. They are, and we're the chocolate, okay? This is why they don't want anybody mess with their women, especially white guys. Because they're afraid to eliminate that black people are going to wipe them out. But yet they intermixing with us, but they can keep on living in with their bloodline. I mean, it's a sick conception. And then you wonder why a lot of this. And Hallows Day, yeah, they talking about these people. All Saints Day, yeah, white, white. We need to study this stuff. We really do, because it's something that Europeans won't tell us. There's something that they don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you this stuff. They're talking about the Day of the Dead, the City of the Dead. That's what this is what Mexicans believe this as well. This is what Mexicans believe. Every year the Mexicans celebrate the Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead. Mexicans people, this is a Mexican holiday. The Day of the Dead is a Mexican holiday and celebrate throughout Mexico. In the part of the central and the south region and the acknowledgement of around the world in other cultures, the holidays focus on the gathering of families and friends to pray for and remember the friends and family members who have died and help to support in the spiritual journey. In 2008, the tradition was and described in the Ritz Kitchen of list of the ancestry culture heritage of humanity by the UNESCO. Sometime holiday. Holidays is sometimes is called designated industrially multi day is the president of the country a back or translate of its original name. Thus, when Mother's Day is probably a celebrate in Mexico, where the day is a public holiday and the product to the Spanish colonization in the 16 centuries. The celebration was taking place at the beginning of summer. It was moved to October 31, and November the 1 and November the 2nd to encapsulate with the Western Christian and desolate of all hollow in with the all Saint Eve, all Saint Eve, and all day Saint Day, and All Soul Day, and tradition connected with the holiday included in building private, as they're called, and setting and honor the passage of using sugar skull and medicine and the favorite food and beverage of the parchment and visit grave sites with the with those as gifts and invite and also ha, also and also okay divided also have the purgement of the obsession of the deceased as the grave. The scholars trace it the origin of the modern Mexican holiday to the indigenous observed dated back hundreds of years and to the a as a festival dedicated to the gorgeous Macleanminot. The holiday has spent throughout the world, been and slightly within others in deep tradition of for honor the dead. It happens to be a holiday that has become a natural symbol, and as much is taught for education and purpose in the nation school. But there are families who are more than inadequate to tradition, a celebrate a tradition, and All Saints Day associated with the Roman Catholic Church. This I know all this stuff, man. This explains why Europeans do the stuff they've been doing. I've been knowing about this stuff for years. I know about this, but this explains why Mexicans celebrate the Day of the Dead. This explains that usually the Day of the Dead as much as was not celebrated in North Mexico, where it was even unknown until the 20th century. Before that, the people and the church rejected in the northeastern Mexico is because the prophecy of the day was insulted and radically pagan and or elements with Catholic Christianity. They led the tradition of All Saints Day in the way as they others Christians in the world. This tradition to the limit or non-existent medically so American influence in this or region and the relative of a few indigenous inhabitants from the region of the southern Mexico in the early 21st century in North Mexico, and approximately that indeed one day too is served because the Mexican government make it's a natural holiday by its education policies from 1960s and trying to use as a undoubtedly a natural a tradition in the north of the country. In Brazil, the Day is a public holiday that many Brazils celebrate by 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 a visit cemeteries and church in Spain festival and parade or to quietly the whole and the people offered gather as a cemetery and praying for their the 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 deceased of loved ones at the end of the day. And familiar of the servant athlete or somewhere in Europe. and pervasively of a theme and celebration and appeared in many Asia, yeah, that too, and African of cultures in France and some other European countries. Also, they was inserted by a visit of the families to the graves of the loved ones, where they left in the Chrysler in Saint Mesley was right in Martinsville in York City served that mentally the word was along the oldest of celebrate on the earth. It appeared that in many countries the Day of the Dead at 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 the year end at the Howard and where the burden of the world is thought to give a passion to the souls and line Brian being Brian near it. She also devoted to the Angeles of series as much as Buddhism of Bon of Festival which is held in the summer, but familiar of the theme of celebrated of the honors the dead has been practiced and since primarily history of times in many Asia and African cultures. Man, let me say to this. I bet you want to bet this stuff is about us. Why I say that? Because look at the origin when they say this. The origin of the Day of the Dead celebrate in Mexico that they have from the ancient tradition around is probably uh, uh, Columbus countries and rituals celebrate the deaths of the ancient the death of ancestors has been asserted by those those civilization perhaps for as long as point 500 and 300 years. The festival that perhaps into the modern day of the dead is if fall into the 9 month of the as said calendar about the beginning of August, and it was celebrate for enter the month. The festival are dedicated to the goddess known as the Lady of the Dead and correct response to the modern Lancelot and Carthage. So it started that they believed this kind of stuff by the late 20th century in most religion of Mexico. The practices have to have to honors dead children and then sting on November the 1 and to honor and deceased adults on November the 2nd, and November the 1 is perhaps is referred to as in this movie is the day of the innocent, but it's also in that movie in Atlanta in the day of the little angel. The November the 2nd is referred to as the and what's the Day of the Dead. Let me say this. I bet you want to bet this stuff is got started off from the book, the book of Dead. They're talking about us, people. They're talking about us. The Mexicans know it, the Europeans, and all the rest of them. And it started off with this pagan religion, and all the way from this whole Mexico and stuff. This all that. See, this is why you need to look at Halloween. You need to look at this kind of stuff because it started off from the Roman Catholic Church. It controlled two organizations of Moors and Knight Templars, also known as the Ku Klux Klan, also known as the Nation of Islam. Y'all need to look this up. Y'all need to look it up. Y'all need to look it up because this explains a lot. And it started from the Western world, and you know they talking about Switzerland and Germany and all the rest of those countries, and Austrian. You know they talk about those kind of folks, and it started from this whole pagan religion, pagan tradition, and y'all need to watch that movie called Nightmare Before Christmas by featured Jack, the Pumpkin King. Go watch that because this based on him, the Jack Lantern. That's based on that guy right here. I'm telling you, this is why you need to look at this kind of stuff, man. Because I never noticed it till I read this type of stuff right now. This explains a lot why white people represent the book of life and black people represented the book of the dead. There's a movie, Snoop Dogg did a movie, it was called Bones. Go watch that movie. It's preferred Skull and Bones Society, but it's also preferred as the Pirates in the Real Caribbean because that movie was being slaved by the Moors, by the Europeans. Moors slaved the Europeans, and Europeans slaved the Africans. This is why black folks and white folks fighting is because those people are descendants of Ham and Japheth. White people had 7 sons. Black people had 4 sons. Asians had 5 sons. 5 sons, they talking about the 5 elements. And I'm going to talk about that in my few videos. I need to talk about that. And I need to talk about the 4 elements. I probably did that before. The 4 elements, that's the 5 elements, that's Asians. The 4 elements that they talk about black people. I'm telling you, watch that show Avatar. Please go watch that show, feature A, and then she got Katara, Korra, the Legend of Katara, the waterbending girl. The last Airbender is Aang, because Africa is south wind. They're talking about South Africa. They're talking about South Africa, and the Fire Nation is Europeans. And the Earth Nation is America. The Water Nation is talk about Asian. Y'all need to look at this stuff because this explains a lot. The fifth element, the Holy Spirit, they're talking about is Australian. You got 7 continents and 4 seas. 7 continents. That's who they talking about. Don't tell me about these Europeans because I know what they believe because we mix our DNA with them. They did some wicked ass shit, but we did it too. And we need to understand if we want to have a moment of peace, then Europeans got to do the rest because they created this scientific racism and they know it's going to damage them and everything else. Then we got to do the rest and Asians too. We're all part of one family. I don't care what nobody says. Because if we wasn't, this is why we wouldn't fight each other so much. This government do not want to see all these other races unite. Thanks to this scientific racism, they put us in these sub-races. We treat everybody, make it seem like they subhuman. The only subhuman, we don't expect no human life, no human dignity, no human respect. This is why they talking about subhuman. White people always talking about it, but they do it too. Every other group don't treat people as a human. But people have a right to be human, regardless how different we are. Some people think that we came from alien. Alien is another word for foreigner. This is why they closed the border. This is why they carrying guns. This is why they do the things they do. You ever ask your church, the 501c3? The 501c3, they connected those people from the Roman Vatican City to Islam and Israel. If you think this is not true, I don't know what to say to you. Y'all better get off your ass. Because these people plan on, they're going to do something. And the UN know it too. These are the same people that put Obama in there. But yet they don't want Obama in there. Which is it? White people put Obama in there just as much as black people put Obama in there. If this is don't create a moment of peace, this is why. The Book of the Dead and the Day of the Dead, that's based on blacks. I'm telling you. The way they do it, and it's based on that, they connect the ancestry to us. But that's just my commentary. People wake up. And I'm out. And it's your boy Domination. This is Back of the Basics. Chuck of the Deuces. How to expect me. Until next time. All right? All right. Peace. I'm out. Peace.